Climate change is inevitable, but at the rate we're going, it's like warp speed, and the damage that's happening is like way extreme.
So I've seen, 6 decades of change with the climate. The Aina has changed, the beach has changed. It makes me sad.
Our vegetation has changed, the shoreline has receded, and of course all the local families live mostly all along the shoreline here. And so we need to protect it so that we can continue our way of life out here.
Sea level rise and climate change affects our ability to respond to our community in emergencies. A lot of that is access through roads that are now being damaged and soon will be impassable.
Majority of our community knows that, sea level rise is happening, climate change is happening, and they're at the point is, okay, what are we gonna do about it?
So this plan came out of a grant through Maui County and Council Member Rollins Fernandez.
Councilmember Rollins Fernandez hosted community work groups. And through those groups, there was a great concern about people not taking climate change and sea level rise seriously on our island.
Current models are already projecting that downtown Kaunakakai could be underwater in our lifetime or in our children's lifetime. So it's not as distant of a future as it may seem.
Some may not think about it in terms of climate change, in terms of sea level rise, but the reality is whether you're seeing the shoreline receding, you're seeing your properties get smaller, you're seeing different types of invasive algal in the water, then there's the drought and our overpopulation of deer. When you look at the recent storms, how roadways get cut off, all of those things, climate change has a lot to do with it. And there's not any other planning efforts to help steer us into the future.
This plan is the first of its kind, and the purpose of it is to give our community an opportunity to determine what critical infrastructure we'll need to relocate or rebuild or re-envision for our future. Critical infrastructures such as our roadways, we have our water lines, we have our power lines. Right in town, we have our wastewater facility.
The goal of the plan is to create an action-based document that is Indigenous and community-driven and community-led. And so there's a core group of us that are facilitating it and helping to write the plan and do the community engagement. And we have consultants and experts in their fields who are helping us.
Pumping up to the pipe should come on different rates.
Sea level rise is definitely a threat to Molokai, but it's not something that will come quickly and change the landscape overnight, like how, say, a fire or a tsunami or a hurricane might. It's a slow-moving threat that we can plan for. The goal of this plan for us is to help provide the community on Molokai with tools to be able to understand the existing science and data that's available and the existing ways that people are adapting to sea level rise around the world.
It was really important to meet people where they are, meet them in their communities, talk story with them, show them our materials, and then be able to get their feedback.
I kind of feel like it's obvious we got to focus on Kaunakakai. I mean, that's our main town. We have a lot of our important infrastructure there. For sure, the wastewater system. Our main road is along the coast, so to me, that's another priority area. The schools that are in the area too.
We really tried to do a lot of community engagement and get everyone's input and feedback on this project. Maybe things that they have seen over the years, and maybe their ideas on strategies on what they think we could do. So we were able to visit all 4 communities, Mauna Loa, Ho'olehua, Kualapu'u, Kanakakai, and Manae. We also did mini focus groups after those workshops.
A lot of my ohana come from the East End, and we always heard stories of how awesome our resources were here, and to see what climate change and how it can affect us in the long run just kind of like hits home.
In the first community workshops, which was during COVID, we had to design the first set of maps just to show everyone what sea level rise could look like based on predictions. And we showed where the water could be, and then also what roadways were affected. It showed cesspools and septic tanks and wastewater systems. It also showed critical infrastructure and hospitals, police, stores, places that are a lifeline for us that can be affected. And then the other thing that those maps show are where are the places that are safe after sea level rise? Where are places that certain communities could be relocated to if they want to?
It's been a while. There's Hau, there's Keawe, but a lot of the trees have fallen down into the ocean already.
The long term is always to relocate. And I know a lot of our residents, they don't want to move. They want to stay in those houses that are multi-generational houses. So that's when we ask them, like, okay, can we do shoreline restoration, plant natives along our shoreline, maybe build the fish pond back in front of your house to kind of slow that down. So it's just trying to figure out strategies that we can do.
And then that used to be another fish pond.
Yeah.
So this one they would. So we did that first set of maps that went from Kalamaula all the way to Halawa, and then Mo'omomi and Papohaku. We asked the community, what's your top priority areas for infrastructure, roadways, and cultural and natural sites. We got the results, then we went back to the community, had them narrow down the list, and then that's how we came up with the priority sites. The scope of the work was supposed to be 5 to 10 priority sites. We ended up with 13. And then the other part of coming up with the priority sites was speaking to all of the county departments, speaking to the state agencies, speaking to different community organizations to make sure we're not choosing areas that are already going to be addressed by another plan.
We're very concerned because we know this is coming and we need to have a good strategy to deal with it. So all state and county agencies, including federal agencies, need to be aware of this and working together.
Part of the plan as well is having Sea Engineering, who's our engineering consultants, come on island to Molokai multiple times to do site surveying, visual surveying, look at the erosion, look at the shoreline.
When we were there, we looked for anything that might be susceptible to the impacts of sea level rise. For example, critical infrastructure, any type of coastal uses. What's the existing vegetation like? What are ground elevations like? Soil types, and put them on the maps so that people can visually see the extent of each type of hazard.
There's a drainage swell here.
The second set of maps we did in 2022 had an additional scientific prediction, which was the coastal inundation zone. You know, all the wind, high tide, coastal, if it's raining at Mauka, if there's a storm, it really helped show everyone like what we really need to plan for. The other thing that we did with our secondary maps was show each priority site and show invasive species, where water comes down from Mauka, the current conditions of the land in relation to the ocean, and kind of just how everything works together.
So there is the modeling data that comes in one layer. We also help to figure out, okay, well, what kinds of resources might we want to show? And so you might have a layer that shows all of the highways. You might have a layer that shows all of the wastewater facilities. You might have a layer that shows fish ponds. You can kind of show that graphically with different colors so that people can kind of take it in and start to think about, you know, what it all means.
Dips down here where the stream is, so when there's extreme flooding, the water...
So the next part of our process was going through each site and figuring out, with the help of the engineers, just a list of options for the short-term, mid-term, and long-term mitigation and adaptation strategies. And what that means is just, what can we do? What can we do now? What can we do, you know, in 5 to 10 years? And then what can we do 50 years out? So that we have steps to take.
So the first round of workshops was really about getting people's input on which sites should be priority sites that we focus on. And then we took that input and we worked with our engineers to come up with mitigation strategies for those priority sites. And this round of workshops is really about getting feedback from the community on those mitigation strategies.
There's a lot of concern about, you know, what's going to happen to our place and, you know, the places that we grew up fishing and diving and, you know, gathering our resources from.
Two of our priority locations are residential, and a lot of these short-term strategies show like planting natives in your front yard or backyard to slow down the sea level rise impact. Some of our community members are already doing that, and it's a lesson that we as a community can start now, getting back into the fish ponds, getting back into farming, living off of the aina, living off of our Molokai as well, is something that we really need to do, and it's something that will also help us in the long run for our future and for our island.
What we've realized is that we need to incorporate indigenous science and traditional ecological knowledge. There's a lot of wetlands, there's a lot of opportunity to do nature-based solutions, to do shoreline restoration, to restore native species. Restoring those systems would actually make Molokai much more resilient.
We're looking at all options, not just introduced options, but traditional and indigenous place-based options as well. And it's going back to some of those things that did help previous to this current time, and that's what's really important.
There's a need for our traditional indigenous wisdom to be one part of a solidified, supported plan by the government that takes things like fish ponds, our ahupua'a system, and things that our kupuna have been doing for generations. And I think that this plan gives an opportunity for that kind of indigenous wisdom and knowledge to be implemented.
This plan and project was community-led and driven, and every time we went to the community and got their input, we would go back to our consultants and our partners, say what our community said, get their feedback, and then go back to our community and feedback to them what our partners are saying. So it was an ongoing process of going back and forth.
This planning effort needs to continue after this grant, and so just the importance of making sure projects get implemented and designs for projects happen. This is only the first phase in the process.
Good to see you guys. Oh,
It takes years to plan, to design, to fund, and then construct. So I think Molokai is doing a great job of getting a head start, at least being able to identify what are the important areas and resources for the community, and to be able to start that planning process, to start that conversation.
They took pictures, they did all kinds of measurements.
And then to coordinate with the other agencies and organizations so that there isn't duplication.
Why it was important to have so much community engagement and solidify very deep.
After working on this plan and going through the process, it's a lot when you see how much is going to get affected. But at the same time, I think it's really hopeful. The strength is really being able to collaborate with all the other people who are doing good work. So the hope is that when our keiki and when our mo'opuna have to experience these effects, it's not catastrophic. It's not a disaster.
It was made by Molokai people, for Molokai people, for our island that we love. It's not an imposing of systems and values and government and strategies that are foreign to us. These incorporate all kinds of updated resources and technology that can be combined with the core values of who we are in Molokai. And for generations, we can build upon that using the very foundational building blocks that was given to us by our kupuna.